All right, this is Drew Canoli of FitLife.tv. You're listening to Justin and Kate of Extreme Health Radio. Remember, we're in this together.
Welcome to Extreme Health Radio. Extreme Health Radio.
Where natural solutions to almost every health condition are out there. Join us on our journey to find them.
Now here are your hosts,
Broadcasting from sunny Southern California around the world,
Justin and Kate Stellman.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us here on another episode of Extreme Health Radio. Kate just had her fruit for breakfast.
Nothing like having pineapple stuck in your molar.
I love
It's
it.
driving me crazy.
Yeah, you might want to get that out sometime during the show.
Okay.
You'll see some pineapples flying across the room.
That's
here.
classy.
My name is Justin, and that's my wife, Kate, working on her teeth right now.
Hey. I'll get it out.
And this is extremehealthradio.com. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you could be anywhere in the world, so I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to learn a little bit about health and improving your life in some way. So really, really an honor to be here. And we're broadcasting worldwide from Southern California. And where it's a beautiful day. Golly, we've
Gorgeous.
had kind of a strange summer so far, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Really foggy, kind of cold summer, but today happens to be a really beautiful day.
We are so grateful.
This way, Daniel Vitalis won't be jealous of our weather.
This is right.
In Maine.
Right.
We'll be introducing Daniel in just a moment. We're going to be talking about air, the third noble element. This is going to be a great interview. We do shows 4 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So it's an honor to do those. And if you'd like to follow us on Facebook and join the community, we would love that. It would be fun to have you aboard. You can go to extremehealthradio.com/Facebook. And all you have to do is click the like button on there and you're good to go. And for reference, today is, what's Wednesday, right?
Wednesday,
September
4th.
September 4th, 2013. So if you're listening to this 5 years from now, I don't know how that will help you. But
there you go.
There you go. And this is episode number 148. So you can go to extremehealthradio.com/148 and you'll be able to make comments on that page and check out the transcription in time and any show notes or websites that Mr. Vitalis mentions today. So you can always check out that. And there's a few different ways to join the show. Love to have you do that. You can email me simply by going to justin@extremehealthradio.com.
Or Kate, Kate, at extremehealthradio.com.
And another feature we have on our website, which is really convenient for a lot of people, is that you can send a voicemail to our guest or to us straight from your computer. And if you go to extremehealthradio.com/voicemail, all one word, you'll be able to do that. And that's a great way to join the show as well.
Nifty little feature.
Yeah, nice little feature there. And if you'd like to support us on Amazon, a lot of people are doing that these days, and it's really, really a huge help. So, especially during the holiday season and so forth, you go to extremehealthradio.com/Amazon. Every time you make a purchase, that'll help support our show, that'll help pay the bills, and we'd be so appreciative of that. And let's see. What else do we have to cover? Some upcoming show schedule. We've got Billy Blanks Jr. coming up.
This is right.
I remember, like I said, Billy Blanks, his father from the 90s.
I know.
You know, doing the Taibo, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the Taibo. Who would have seen this coming, huh?
That'll be
gonna
good.
be great.
That'll be a good show. We like what they're doing. And then we've got Dr. Bradley Nelson. He is the author of the Emotion Code. And he's from healerslibrary.com. So that'll be a fun show. He'll be talking about how emotions and energy and all that, how that plays a role in our health and our healing. Interesting dynamic to healing. And he's been on before, so that'll be a good show with Dr. Bradley Nelson. Then we've got Dr. Christopher Shade. And he'll be talking about silver. He's the world's leading guy on silver at Quicksilver Scientific.
Not the surf brand.
No.
Not to be confused.
Not to be confused with Kelly Slater, the pro surfer. Anyway, today we have Daniel Vitalis, and his website is danielvitalis.com, and as well as surthrival.com. And we'll post links to those websites on this show page as well. And it's an honor to have him back, and he's back for part 3 of the 4 noble elements. So how you doing today, Daniel?
Man, I got to tell you guys, I'm pretty excited to be back on your show.
Oh, well, thank you. That's so great.
We'd love having you.
I really enjoyed the series.
Oh, it's awesome. And how is life treating you in Maine these days?
Oh man, life's like life. It's lots of vicissitudes. It's amazing, and it's also terrible and wonderful, and kind of all of it. So I just taking it all in. I don't know what I was thinking last night. What do you call a person who's neither an optimist nor a pessimist? But what's the middle ground called? Do we even have a name for that?
Ooh.
Optimist or pessimist? That's a good question. I've never even thought about that.
It's so polarizing,
Isn't
Yeah.
it? Just like everything in our culture, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Republican or Democrat?
You have two choices. That's all you get.
Well, I don't know. I think we should coin a term, though. I can't think of a good one.
I know. We'll work on that.
Okay.
We'll work on that. I love it.
Yeah, let me know what you come up with.
Yeah.
Hey, Danielle, I wanted to congratulate you on your redesign of Surthrival. It looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we've just recently relaunched that, and also relaunched findaspring.com. So those sites have been really overhauled, and it's one of those things that when you see it redone, you go, "Wow, we needed that."
Yeah.
So I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, it's really,
Yeah,
really
it
good.
looks great.
Have you been adding some more products to Surthrival recently as well, I think?
Slowly, we are adding more stuff. Lately, we've added we just added a new size of new potency of our deer antler because for a long time, people have been asking us for something that actually was less strong because we had certain, sometimes people would take it and say it was too strong for them. So we came out with a product called Essentia, which is a very toned down and much less expensive version of our elk antler. So, we've been doing things like that and just trying to make the site more robust.
I have to say, I was looking on there the other day, and what do you have? Some like 6 or 10 pound bag of colostrum, something crazy.
2 kilos.
It's like lifting weights.
2 kilo bag. Yeah, well, we actually, that's really required for the users. There are hardcore users of that product. I'm one of them. We use it just about every single day. So you go through it pretty fast that way. So, it's funny. You ever walk into like a GNC and you see the size of some of those, weight gain powders that they have,
I know.
like these dump truck size loads of these powders. And so we wanted to offer something that was equivalent.
Yeah.
Well, you've done it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And now you're offering, not to get too far into the store, but what is the other, I forget what the name of it is. It's like a berry, some kind of berry.
Well, we've just launched Shizandra berry, and that's Shizandra berry is this really cool fruit. It comes out of Chinese medicine, and they call it the 5 flavor fruit, and they say that it does contain all the flavors all in one thing, which in Chinese medicine is really important because it's very balanced. So the thing is if you eat too much sweet, then you need to balance it out with something bitter and something sour and something salty. If you eat too much of any one thing, you've got to keep balancing. So it's a completely balanced food. I really wanted to get a berry into our lineup because I'm a big believer in fruit consumption, but particularly berry consumption, more so than the large, sugary, domesticated fruits today. And that's completely grown in the United States, in Massachusetts, by an old Chinese man. We have that freeze-dried and packed up like that, and it's really fantastic. And, it has this cool property of helping your body adapt to heat stress, which is really neat. So through the summer, I've been making like a lemonade with it, and it helps protect your proteins from excessive heat.
Yeah, I've seen that video. I think you did a video with how to make lemonade from that. It looks so amazing.
Yeah, it's really nice stuff.
What does that stuff taste like?
Well, it's got all 5 flavors.
Does it? Oh, look at you.
It's almost hard to describe it. It's so unique. It's got, it's definitely got the sweetness of a fruit, a little bit bitterness of an herb. The salt isn't pronounced, but it's balanced. A little tart, little sour kind of a thing going on, and a little bit of like a spicy pungency, all kind of wrapped up. So, like I said, difficult to like explain. There's nothing I can really compare it to. It's a very unique flavor experience. The only thing I could compare it to would be something else totally obscure. Like it reminds me a little bit of spikenard berry, but no.
Because everyone's had that before.
Everyone's had spikenard.
Never even heard that word, Daniel Vitalis. Look at how much I learned.
I know, it's great.
That's great.
Oh, man. So now this is the third part of this particular series we're doing on air. And so what is your starting point for this particular topic?
Well, what I've really enjoyed about going through all these elements with you guys is I just think there's a bigger picture about, of nutrition that we can if we step back, that we can see we're a little myopic. We look at nutrition and we think food only. So it's been nice to say, hey, you know what? We actually have a requirement for a lot more than just food. We have a requirement for water. We have a requirement for air. We have a requirement for sunlight. That's really our 4 major nutritive needs. And as we've been talking about, you know, incidentally, you put those 4 things in, but you also put them back out. So again, we said it's sort of food comes in, and that kind of, you know, feces comes back out. It's like the soil comes back out of us, and we replenish the ecosystem that way. And water goes in, and we micturate that out, it's called, or urinate that out. Of course, sunlight comes in to our skin, and then we sweat that heat energy back out. And with air, of course, we are breathing that air in, and then we're exhaling that air back out. So we are this creature living off the 4 elements. And I think if we want to make that a little less esoteric sounding, we could think of the example of a fish tank or an aquarium. That healthy aquarium needs fish food to go in, needs clean water to go in, needs that good full spectrum light to keep that thing going like the sun would. And then, of course, it needs that bubbler. And that bubbler is bringing in fresh oxygen into the water. And so our lungs are like our bubbler, and we live in an ocean of air. And one of the things a lot of people forget is that, or maybe you have never heard, is that gas, the state of matter between plasma and liquids, the gaseous state, gas is a fluid. So we often think of liquids as fluids, and they are, but gas is also a fluid. And we live in an ocean of this fluid of atmosphere, and we are in this fluid very similar to what, say, a lobster is in the ocean, right? A lobster is a bottom feeder in an ocean of water. We are a bottom feeder in an ocean of air. So we live underneath, at the very bottom of this massive ocean of air. But trying to describe that to someone is like trying to describe water to a fish.
Right. So would the air in that particular analogy, would the air be cleaner as you go higher up? Because if we are a bottom feeder, would that be the case, do you think?
Well, I think that, in the past it was. Today, of course, we are dealing with so much pollution in our environment that I don't think that would be fair to say anymore. In the past, though, the idea was that those people who wanted that spiritual enlightenment went to the mountaintops where the air was more rarefied, thinner. But today, I don't know that that's true anymore. I couldn't really answer that in all accuracy because I know that so many toxic chemicals rise up to the ozone layer. So, I don't know if that's true, but I do know that this air that we're under is very heavy, and we are so adapted to it that we don't notice the crushing weight of it. So we think of this air as almost ephemeral, like it has no weight, but it's actually pressing down upon us. And one of the things that happens as we go higher and higher up into the atmosphere, like you just mentioned, is that the air becomes thinner and we lose the ability to breathe. So above, let's say 30,000 feet is sort of where human beings max out our ability to go any higher. We require barometric pressure and oxygen tanks.
Right.
And so, incidentally, that's about as high as you can go anywhere on the planet anyway. That's Mount Everest. So, we're very adapted to this planet, this beautiful ocean of air. But what I want to say about it is that although it's a very large ocean of air, really, it's actually quite thin, about 5 miles. And so here's the analogy takeaway for the listener. Imagine a globe like you would have in your classroom, or like maybe you have one in your home. At scale, the thickness of our atmosphere is the equivalent of the thickness of the varnish that holds the map onto the globe's surface. Wow. That's how thick our air is. And so in the same way that I think the world is starting to realize, hey, what we do to our water, Fukushima's really brought this home, right? Yeah. What one nation does to the ocean, they do to all nations, because we share this ocean of water. Well, so similarly, we share this ocean of air, but I think it's a more pressing issue because it is really so thin and it's so delicate. Sometimes you'll see these images taken from space, from satellites or from space shuttles, and they'll be just sort of a side angle view of the Earth, and you can actually see the atmosphere as this very thin band of blue, that hugs the Earth. And so we're sharing that ocean of air, and there's not really something you can do to it that doesn't affect everyone.
Do you think that any of the pollutants that people are putting out through their cars and through all the toxic chemicals going on with the coal-fired plants and things. Do those ever get mitigated, do you think? Do they ever disperse?
Yeah, well, they disperse, of course, because it's a fluid. So they move out through that fluid and start to try to equalize themselves. So they diffuse. And then there are ways that those things can be sequestered. And plants sequester that. And that's something we're going to get into in a little bit. But I think, if your question is, can it be cleaned? It can be cleaned. We have the technology to clean it. We just don't have the, focus as a species yet to do it. But, I think that'll happen, or we'll reach our demise, one or the other. We have both options. But we will, we do have the ability to pull some of that stuff out and actually clean it. And the earth is designed to clean things up quite a bit, although we obviously have, taken it to a pretty extreme level here with what we've done to our own air. But, another thing I want to mention about air real quickly is that I think all of us know, we need oxygen, and that's why we breathe this air. But I think that people don't often realize that the air that they breathe is 78% nitrogen. So and for us, nitrogen is almost just like a packing material. It's almost like we don't really use the nitrogen that's in air. So we breathe 78% nitrogen in, and then we breathe 78% nitrogen back out when we are respirating or ventilating in our atmosphere. So we don't actually use it. So most of what's in the air for us is not very useful. Now, only 16% of the air we breathe is actually oxygen. And when we breathe that oxygen in, we only use a small percentage. I think it's about 5%. And so we breathe back out about 11% of the oxygen we breathed in, because we can't use it all at once, if that makes sense.
Wow.
So I just want to add that, because I often wondered when I was younger, how, you'd see, for instance, CPR or rescue breathing. Or somebody's breathing into somebody else, and you're going, well, aren't they breathing out carbon dioxide? How does that work? Like, how can that help the other person? But that's because you only need 5% oxygen out of the breaths that you take, and even the air you exhale has 11%. So air is basically it's 78%, 79%, somewhere in there, nitrogen, about 16% oxygen, about 1% carbon dioxide, and the rest is made up of these sort of mixtures of gases that we don't really have much use for. So that oxygen that we need really is a small component of the air that we breathe, but it's the crucial component, and here's what we do with it. A lot of people realize that if you try to start a fire, if you don't have enough oxygen, the fire can't burn.
Right.
Because really what a fire is the process of oxidation. So really when you see wood burning, what it's doing is it's oxidizing. That's the same thing that happens when you spray peroxide on yourself. If you've ever sprayed peroxide on a cut and you see that it starts to like bubble and foam because you're oxidizing things, that's a fire, but it's just a very cool, slow fire. When you see your piece of metal rusting, this is an important piece as we move forward. When you see a piece of metal rusting, it's actually burning. It's burning, it's oxidizing. It's just burning very slowly. Imagine if we had a big piece of, a plate of iron, and right in the middle, a little rust spot started, and we started filming that, and we let the whole thing rust out over the course of years, and then we watched that at ultra fast speed. Could you see how it almost would look like you would see it was a burn that started to spread out from a central point, like almost like if you touched a hot coal to a piece of fabric, the way that, how it would sort of burn and spread. That's what rust is. But rust is a slow fire. Now, here's what's going on in your body. When you inhale or inspire, I love that it's called to inspire.
Right?
Well, that's good.
Right. So when we inspire, and we bring that spiritus in, we bring that atmosphere in, and atmosphere means the sphere of vapor. When we pull that into our bodies, that oxygen attaches itself to our red blood cells, our red blood corpuscles, or erythrocytes as they're called. Our red blood cells are weird. They don't have a nucleus like other cells. They're very strange. They're designed basically you can almost think of it like a cab that can take 4 passengers, and the passengers in this case are going to be oxygen. So it's going to pick up, one red blood cell will pick up 4 little oxygen molecules that it's going to grab from our lungs, and it's going to transport it to our different cells, where our cells actually use it to burn the fuel of the food that we eat. Now when we burn that food, what happens is there's a byproduct produced, just like when we burn a fire, of carbon dioxide.
Okay.
That carbon dioxide is then stuffed in the cab. The cab can take 4 carbon dioxides too. And it drives back through our bloodstream to our lungs, where it dumps those off and it picks up 4 more oxygens. And this process keeps going on as our cells burn the fire of our ATP, or our internal fuel. So you really are, when people say burning calories, that's actually a very legitimate thing. Every cell has its own power plant where it's literally burning the calories that we eat, and that's how we fuel ourselves. So it's this fantastic internal fire that's taking place.
Oh, that's
really,
amazing.
really beautiful. Now, here's what's so cool to me. Have you ever heard this thing that the blood that's in your arteries is bright red, and the blood that's in your veins is like a darker, almost bluish color?
I have heard that.
Now, here's what happens. When the oxygen goes into the red blood cell, the hemoglobin, which is where we hold our body's iron, it actually rusts. And that's what turns the blood red. Blood is red, because it's rusted. It's literally got rust in it, iron oxide. So what's happening is the red blood cells are filled with hemoglobin. Hemoglobin contains iron. We inhale oxygen. It goes into the red blood cell and rusts the red blood cell and turns it red. And that colors or pigments our blood. And then when we exhale the carbon dioxide, when the blood has no oxygen on its way back from the cell to the lungs again, it's a much darker color because it's not so rusty anymore. So that's actually this really interesting piece about our bodies, is that we are constantly rusting and then unrusting as we breathe.
Ooh, this is good. This is a good time to take a break. This is really interesting.
Never heard this before.
I'm starting to think about maybe how important it is to breathe correctly while you're eating, and maybe not be stressed. But
you think?
Well, we are with Daniel Vitalis from danielvitalis.com, as well as sirthrival.com, and we'll be right back after this short break. So it's been so much fun for my wife and I to put together this website with all of the articles and the transcriptions and the store and the shows for you. It's been really, really great. And if you would like to support us, we've got a really great store on our website, and we do it mostly through affiliations with products that we really, really believe in. And we search out and do a lot of research before we put any of these products on the store. So if you go to extremehealthradio.com/store, there's a little welcome video from me there, and you can learn more about what we're about and how we've chosen the products to be in our store. But we've got all kinds of great things, like a ton of DVDs that you can check out in all different tabs, as well as products for certain conditions like yeast infection and cancer and your own blood tests. And we've got physical products and digital products and diet products where you can learn about the paleo diet and different summits, the Real Food Summit and the Perfect Digestion Plan. And we've got all kinds of different things for fitness as well. We sell yoga trapezes and yoga courses and qigong courses, really, really high quality stuff, and pregnancy products and food prep products if you're interested in learning how to cook real food, as well as a really great raw food prep program. And we've also sell lots of different herbs and supplements through Mountain Rose Herbs and Sir Thrival, and protein powders and blenders and dehydrators and all kinds of really, really great products. And I like the fermentation products too, where we've got courses on how to ferment anything, and you can buy fermentation products, physical products like fermentation crocks, and we've got a whole line of survival products, and like I said, blenders and juicers and rebounders and water purification systems and chemical-free glass cookware and all kinds of really great stuff. So if you're interested in supporting us, check out our store. We've got lots of high-quality products that are handpicked by me to be in here. And like I said, we do lots of research before we put any of these products in our store. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/store. So thanks for listening, and let's get back to the show.
100% listener supported. Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Don't forget to join our thriving community for health tips, inspiration, and show updates at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook.
All right, Kate, did you get the pineapple come out of your teeth?
Well, It's moved around. I don't feel it, but I didn't get the satisfaction I wanted of seeing it come out.
Yeah, nothing worse than having something stuck
Something
in
in your teeth. It's the worst. Anyway,
It's
all good.
Gotta get that out.
I can focus now.
You can focus. I want to thank all of you for being on this call, and don't forget to check out our store. It is one of the ways that we use to support ourselves and to make sure that we keep our shows free for everybody. We can only do this because of you guys and your support in that way. So we work for free, and everything we offer to you is for free. So feel free to either donate or check out our store to help make sure the shows stay free. So it's really an honor to do that. And as the lady said, don't forget to follow us on Facebook. We'd love to have you join our little community, and lots of great stuff going on there. You can keep up to date with our shows and all that good stuff. And so Daniel, this whole idea of the oxidation that's going on inside our body is really, really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a wild concept.
Yeah, it's just really interesting, and a lot of that has to do with the breath and the breathing.
Well, we're all really focused on food. I mean, I was just mentioning that a few minutes ago. It's funny because when we want to take care of our health, typically we run first to food. Some people make the leap and figure out about water. Air is one of these things that people are maybe a little bit less apt to figure out. However, it's interesting with our modern medicine system, something I shared in the past on some of the calls we did. I feel that modern medicine in its allopathic form is not a particularly valuable strategy for long-term care of anybody, and is not particularly good at taking care of disease issues. But what it's really good at is emergencies. It's really good if you break a bone, you don't want to just put a little comfrey oil on that, right? You end up with a puncture wound, and you don't want just a little essential oil. You want modern medicine's emergency care in those kind of situations. Now, the whole emergency care system, from the first responder up to the emergency room physician, surgeon, is all based on, it all starts with, the whole education of anybody in that system starts with what they call the ABCs. That's airway, breathing, circulation. So the very first thing someone learns, whether they're going to be a surgeon or they're going to be an ambulance worker, or they're just going to be a first responder citizen, is protect the airway. That's the first thing. If you come onto the scene of somebody who's unconscious, the very first thing you do after you make sure you're going to be safe there is you make sure their airway is open. If their airway is open, you make sure that they're breathing. Why? Because if you're not breathing, if you don't have an open airway, there's no chance of life. Because you can only live a few minutes without breathing. Now, there are people who've trained themselves to go longer. We see these amazing feats that different performers do where they can go maybe 10, 11, 13 minutes without breathing, and that's very rare. For the average person, they say 4 to 6 minutes without breathing, we start to get brain damage. Now, there's a lot of leeway there. That's a generalization, of course. If our body's very cold, we can go longer. But in general, we need breath within the first 6 minutes. And without that, we don't make it. So while the nutrients in food are very important to us, I personally know people that have gone longer than a month without any food intake. While water is critical to us, and they say you typically have 3 days without water, I know people that have gone without water for 7 days. So I know that those things are very possible. But you can't go 7 days without breathing. Our most critical, the most important thing is making sure that we have what they call a patent or open airway, and that we are ventilating and respirating properly. Now, for the listener, ventilation is the term for actually moving air in and out of our lungs. And respiration is that process of gas exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen that happens in the lungs and in the cells that we were talking about before, that keeps that oxidative fire burning inside of us. Right. But if we're not breathing, that fire goes out and a person dies. So it's so crucial that we are breathing. That's how we really interact with our atmosphere. We pull that in and we expel it back out. And I think that a lot of us imagine, you remember that old game Mousetrap?
Oh, yeah. I love that game.
Right? I often joke, I imagine sometimes if we're not educated about anatomy and physiology, if we haven't maybe taken anatomy and physiology class, or maybe butchered an animal before, or had somebody teach us about these things, or taken the self-study time to learn about it, sometimes I think people picture the inside of their body like mousetrap, you know, like
Totally.
little gears and cogs and little ropes and pulleys, and what's really in there? We don't really know. So I think a lot of times we think of our lungs as these empty bags, like hollow bags that fill up with air. And often we think our lungs are a little bit lower than they are too. So the average person's lungs kind of start right around where their nipples are. And they come quite high up, even poking above the collarbones. So they're actually quite high up in the body. And they, contrary to what most people think, are not a hollow organ, but they're a solid organ. So your lungs are not a bag. They're much more like the material that's inside of a couch cushion, that open cell foam material.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had the opportunity many years ago during a cadaver situation at a local college here, and we were able to hold the lungs and squeeze them, and it was really fascinating.
So as you saw, incredibly lightweight, right? They are incredibly light tissue. They are incredibly expandable, because even holding a lung, this is going to sound a little weird, but you can inflate it, which is a fascinating experiment. For anybody who ever has the opportunity to either work with a cadaver or do a butchering of an animal, it's really interesting to open up the diaphragm so that you can see the base of the lungs and then actually ventilate that animal through the mouth. And it's fascinating to watch the lungs inflate. You learn a lot through that process.
You know, people could actually do that if they went to, what is that guy's name? Daniel, you might know who he is. He's the guy that has the anatomy of all the people that you can go actually see the human body in different
he like
forms.
plasticizes them?
Yeah.
The body.
Body
works. Body
worlds or something.
Body worlds.
Yeah.
What a fantastic thing that is.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah,
Just a
so
side note,
I think, if I understand it correctly, that thing got so popular that I think the source of some of those bodies is a little creepy now. I'll let the individual listener do their own research on where those guys come from. But it is a fascinating thing. I really love anatomy, and I think a lot of times people talk about anatomy and physiology like they do about high level mathematics, like it's very scary and overwhelming to learn about. But I think there's so many really wonderful, fun to look at anatomy guides, and people do really well if they're really interested in health. They'd be really well served by learning how their anatomy works. So back to what I was saying, your lungs are like open cell foam, like the stuff that's inside of a couch cushion. And you can picture that if I squeeze a couch cushion, maybe let's imagine I have a couch cushion, like a leather couch cushion, and I cut a hole in the leather, so now we can see that foam that's inside. And then I squeeze the couch cushion, all that air is going to come out that hole. But as soon as I let go, air's going to just rush back inside and fill up all the little holes in that foam. That's kind of like how your lungs work, with your diaphragm drawing down and stretching them out, and air is pulled, it's vacuumed into your body. And so that's how we ventilate back and forth, back and forth. There's this temptation to think that we should start trying to breathe deeper. There's a temptation to say, wow, I actually have about 3 or 4 times the lung capacity that I use in my everyday normal breathing. I should probably try to breathe more deeply. But that actually we're learning is a bit of a mistake. So what we don't want to do is start changing our breathing too much. Now, that's not to say that the average person might not be in a chronic stress reflex and they might breathe very shallowly and high into the lungs. That's not what I'm talking about. But what we don't want to do is try to say, it's kind of like hearing, oh, vitamin C is really good for me, so now I'm going to overdose myself on vitamin C. Okay. We know that the oxygen is really important, but we don't want to overdose on it because it is oxidative. And that's actually one of the things that kills us over time. And that's one of the things that takes people down, oxidative stress. That's why we need antioxidants. So we don't want to overventilate ourselves. We want to make sure, though, that we aren't in a stress reflex. So next time you're in a stressful situation, let's say you are in traffic and you're getting angry. Let's say that you're in a situation at work where the tension is really high. Let's say that there's some kind of emergency taking place. Next time that's happening, if you can, tune into what happens to your breathing. It's not a thing that you're consciously able to control unless you are aware of what's happening. It just takes over. It's a reflex. You'll start to breathe very shallow and high in the lungs. Now, some people, because they never release their stress, they constantly breathe like that. So for those people, it's not about trying to breathe more deeply. It's about actually just relaxing and letting the body breathe itself.
Do you think we're doing any damage to ourselves by training our bodies to breathe so shallow the way we do?
I think that we do damage to ourselves by being in chronic stress. And I say that as somebody who's really good at living in chronic stress. So I'm right along with all those people I'm talking to. It's a constant work for me to learn how to balance myself with the motivation that comes from stress and relaxing myself. Now, we have these two parts of our nervous system, two parts of our central nervous system, I should say, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system is our stress reflex. When our sympathetic nervous system is active, we start breathing fast and shallow. When our parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, we start to breathe more deeply and in a more relaxed way. Now, again, what I want to hit at here is the goal is not to breathe more deeply. The goal is to get yourself to relax more, and that will allow you to breathe more deeply. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Rather than forcing ourselves to do it. Now, here's why I'm suggesting this.